Madeline Gray was a lovely young woman who grew up living in the luxury of the Ford mansion after she was orphaned. Vernon Ford, the man that had taken her responsibility, had made all arrangements for her. After finishing her elementary studies at the mansion, Vernon Ford sent her to an esteemed and notable college where Madeline was doing well. Everything was perfect in her life. She was never deprived of anything, but a certain loneliness haunted her throughout the large rooms and the empty halls of the Ford mansion. However, Madeline soon found that love she was searching for while studying away from home. She met a young man named William Fleming. William was an intelligent, handsome, sophisticated young man, and just by talking to him, Madeline fell in love. If Madeline was upset, for some reason it was William who cared. If Madeline was happy, it was William to be the first one to celebrate. And if Madeline was angry, he would be the first to, well, joke about how silly the matter was and help her cool down. "William, what are you doing? We only get a few minutes to spend out of our busy schedules and you're still working on your paper." "Yeah, what can I say? Can't let my grades drop now, can I?" "Oh, give me that. You can't spare me 5 minutes?" "What is this, William?" "It gets hard to focus in class and then I start scribbling. And now I have a whole notebook of only you." "So you're an artist as well?" "Honestly, I'm not, but there's just something about you." Madeline and William had been in a relationship for the past 2 years, and both were considering getting married once they would graduate. But it was after one spring break, when Madeline returned after visiting home, she looked changed and heartbroken. "Madeline, what's wrong? Why do you look upset?" "William, we can't see each other anymore." "What? Madeline, what are you talking about? Are you upset with me? What happened? We can talk things out." "It's not you, William, but it's the circumstance. My benefactor wants to marry me." No, Madeline, don't tell me you said yes to him." "I have to, William." "Madeline, you can't do this. That man is as old as your father. How can you say yes? How can you ruin everything we had for that? To be miserably married to an old man?" "William, try to understand. After my father went to jail, my grandmother passed away, I don't have a mother, my relatives even abandoned me, but it was him who took me in. He favored me when no one else had. No, I can't accept this. Just because he did that for you doesn't mean you've become his slave. Tell me, Madeline, is he making you do this? You don't have to." "No, William, he's never treated me with disrespect. I owe my whole life to him, everything I have. This isn't fair, Madeline. What about us? I love you. I loved you too, William, but now I don't have a choice. Perhaps it's best that we don't meet again." Madeline miserably ended her relationship with William and returned to the Ford mansion. She felt like her life was falling apart after breaking up with him, the one she truly loved. But how could she say no, after all Vernon Ford did for her? "If you want anything, Madeline, you just let me know. Don't hesitate. Think of this as your own home." "No, Mr. Ford, you've given me so much already. What more could I possibly ask for?" "Whatever your heart desires. Now come on, for your 16th birthday, I got you the most expensive dress in town. Why don't you wear it and come down to the party with me?" "Yes, Mr. Ford." "You're growing up to be a beautiful young woman, Madeline, just as I envisioned. You have truly amazed me." Madeline wiped her tears and took a deep breath. She shook off all her second thoughts and went to speak to Vernon. "So what do you say? Shall I send news of our marriage? Are you ready?" "Yes, Mr. Ford, as you please." Vernon immediately sent out word of their marriage, and it was in only days that the wedding was arranged and numerous folk gathered at the Ford ballroom for the occasion. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today in the presence of these witnesses to join Vernon Ford and Madeline Gray in matrimony. It was the day of her wedding, the day that was meant to be most special to her, but as the officiant spoke, all Madeline waited for was for it all to end. If any person can show a just cause why they may not be joined together, let them speak now or forever hold their peace. With the last glimmer of hope, Madeline stared at the onlooking crowd, all staring at her with nothing but accepting smiles. The whole ballroom sat in silence, awaiting for the couple to exchange their rings. By the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Everyone stood up applauding, throwing flowers as Vernon and Madeline walked down the aisle. A smile on Madeline's face that lied, and the tears in her eye that said so much more. That evening, a grand reception party was arranged in the courtyard of the Vernon mansion. The best food, drinks, and caterers were hired for the occasion. The whole mansion was decorated in festivity. As everyone was having a great time, Vernon called for Madeline to meet him at the balcony. "You're looking gorgeous, Madeline. Tonight is a special night for the two of us. Let us share a toast with all our lovely guests. Yes, Mr. Ford. You may call me Vernon, my beloved. You're mine, and I'm yours now." Vernon clapped his hands, calling for everyone's attention from the balcony. Thank you everyone for coming here to share these special moments of my life with me." He looked at Madeline standing beside him and smiled. "This is our life now, Madeline, and I want to tell you how much I have and will appreciate your love and your support." Madeline smiled as a few amongst the crowd applauded. "Please, don't thank me. After all the love you've showered upon me, I don't know anyone more kind and generous than you, Vernon." Vernon raised his wine glass and chuckled. "Let us all toast to happy long years to come." Vernon gulped down the whole glass, letting out a satisfied breath. "This day turned out perfect, didn't it, Madeline?" he said, turning to hold her hand. But all of a sudden, Madeline noticed a sign of strain on Vernon's face. He suddenly stumbled back, holding his chest. "Vernon, are you okay?" I... Unable to bear the sudden extreme pain, Vernon lost his balance and fell over the balcony. Madeline rushed to get hold of him, but it was too late. He slipped through her hands. Everyone screamed out in horror as they heard the gruesome thud on the ground. Madeline rushed inside and through the mansion to get to the courtyard, while all of Vernon's servants hurried to assist him. "Call an ambulance immediately. He's still breathing." The night of their wedding turned out quite unexpected and tragic. Vernon had survived the fall. However, his body became paralyzed and his speech too compromised. Doctors examined him to find his brain was still active. He was able to communicate with his eye movements, but unable to move a single limb of his body. "Doctor, will he ever be able to recover?" "Mrs. Ford, I don't want to give you false hope. At this age, the rate of recovery is very low." After bidding the doctors farewell, Madeline returned to Vernon's bedroom, where the servants took Vernon off his wheelchair and laid him on the bed. "Good night, Mrs. Ford. Call me Madeline, Mr. Brown, like you always have." "Dear, I just don't understand how everything turned out like this." "It's all right, Mr. Brown. There is nothing we can do to change fate. This was destiny." "I guess so, my dear." "Good night, Mr. Brown. And before you go, there will be a guest arriving soon. Please do escort him up." As the servants left, Madeline sat down beside Vernon, staring at him, looking at her with the misery in his eyes. There was just something about the tears that rolled down his cheek that made a smile appear on her lips. On the day of Madeline's wedding, she had no one there from her side. But Madeline did have a distant relative, Timothy Miller. The news of Vernon Ford's marriage to Madeline spread like wildfire through town, soon reaching the ears of Timothy Miller. Timothy was the man who had brought Madeline to Vernon Ford after her grandmother passed away almost 10 years ago. Upon receiving news of her marriage, he hurried to meet the young girl a last time before the wedding took place. There were some things he needed to tell her. Madeline, I know this will be difficult for you to hear, but I must tell you this. Vernon Ford may have done a lot for you, but he's not the man you think he is. What do you mean? Look at this. The man Vernon Ford called a petty thief was none other than your own father, Scott Gray. What? How can that be? My father was in jail. He was released prior to his sentence. Madeline, you don't know anything, dear. You don't know the secrets Vernon Ford has kept from you all these years. He was behind all of this. Just days before his death, your father came to meet me. How could you do this, Timothy? How could you betray your own family? Cousin, try to understand. How could I have taken care of your daughter? I wasn't in the financial state. Excuses. That's why you would give my daughter into the hands of that wicked Vernon Ford? Cousin, I didn't have a choice. That was the only arrangement I could make for her. You think he's a good man just because he took Madeline's responsibility? You know nothing of what Vernon Ford is. He's an evil man. Timothy felt ashamed of his selfishness, knowing the truth of Vernon Ford, but there was nothing he could do now. However, when he received news of a petty thief who had passed away breaking into the Ford mansion, he curiously inquired who the man was. And found out it was none other than his own cousin Scott. Timothy was devastated, but that wasn't the only news he got. He also learned of Madeline's marriage to Vernon. All these years, he hadn't contacted Madeline in fear of his responsibilities towards her. But now, after all that Scott had told him before his death, he couldn't help but feel there was something wrong, because if Madeline knew the truth, she would have never accepted Vernon's hand in marriage. When Madeline learned the truth of Vernon Ford and the truth of her innocent father, she was heartbroken, and with the pain came rage and the want for revenge. She immediately contacted William again and told him everything that had happened and asked him to come meet her right away. William and Madeline were both studying in medical college. They wanted to become doctors, serve people in all goodness, but perhaps now it was time that they used that knowledge for something necessary. Make sure you mix the right dosage into his drink. It will paralyze his whole body, but his brain will remain active. The young couple drugged Vernon and plotted the whole accident out in front of the onlooking crowd on the day of the marriage, away with all suspicion. Madeline smiled as Vernon as tears fell from his eyes, when suddenly she heard a voice from the door. Madeline? Madeline jumped up in excitement to see her beloved William. She ran to him and laughed. You're here. Where else would I be away from you? Did you take a look at the paperwork? Absolutely, William chuckled as he looked at Vernon. Now, since Mr. Ford is, well, in a vegetative state, unable to care for himself, let alone this grand mansion and his multi-million business, we can transfer all his wealth and property to his wife, Mrs. Madeline Ford. Isn't that right? Madeline smirked as she stepped forward and looked at Vernon in the eye. What did you think? You would treat my family like filth. You would ruin my father's life, call him a petty thief, and have the nerve to kill him in front of me, and then I would marry you and be a dedicated, devoted wife? Mrs. Madeline Ford? Maybe to the outside world, I will. But you and I both know our secret. Don't tell, okay, Vernon? Let's go, sweetheart. I need a drink after all of this. Madeline chuckled as she left with her boyfriend William out the door to enjoy themselves right in front of her so-called husband. As Vernon lay there alone in misery, unable to say anything, the rain suddenly started to pour. A strong wind blew through the balcony into the room, sprinkling the raindrops onto his face. Now, Vernon couldn't even move a limb to wipe himself. He stared, looking out into the skies, wishing he had died instead. But suddenly, he noticed someone standing on the balcony through the curtains. No, it couldn't be. Vernon Ford, in case you can still hear and see me, I wish you a long life. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.